Tragedy in France and the Swiss Alps and the Alps yesterday when a German airliner went down, and apparently all 150 or so people aboard lost their lives. The aviation crisis consultant, Fox News contributor Ken Jenkins, on the line here with us this morning. Ken, what is the story as we know it? I know one black box has been recovered, although damaged somewhat, and we're still looking for the other. And anything else we can find in this tragedy?
Hey, good morning, Bill. It is a very sad tragedy, of course, in France. The cockpit voice recorder, as you mentioned, has been found. It is severely damaged, though, and so we're still waiting news to find out if they're going to be able to, if the investigators are going to be able to glean information from that. Mm-hmm. And then if they are able to do so, which we'll certainly keep our fingers crossed, they can match that recording up against the flight data recorder once it's located and get a very good complete picture of what happened on board the aircraft in the cockpit.
I know it's only speculation right now, Ken, but from day one, I had heard that there had been stories done about pilots who did not particularly like the Airbus because there was too much computer technology on board, and that they didn't have manual override. And there have been several incidents with crashes recently where apparently the co-pilot doesn't have the same instrumentation as the pilot does, or that doesn't share information. And there was a big crash, I think, of one of the 444s or something, where the pilot was trying to pull the nose up and the other one was trying to put the nose down, or something along those lines.
Well, yeah, Bill, and that's interesting. It's kind of like, how we select our cars. I mean, you'll find pilots today that love the Airbus product and others that love the Boeing product. Mm-hmm. I'm not a pilot, but as a passenger, I prefer the Boeing product. Mm-hmm. But I don't, I've flown Airbus and I like them, but I just like Boeing, and maybe that's just because as a kid I used to build those Boeing, models.
Yeah.
But with that said, there's certainly a whole realm of automation that is so popular and prevalent in today's cockpit, mm-hmm. that whether it's the Boeing or the Airbus, there's a whole topic about whether or not there's too much automation and that pilots are losing the ability to fly the plane themselves. It's too many computers and whatnot. And that goes on both sides, I think, of the manufacturers.
Mm-hmm. Talking with Ken Jenkins, Fox News contributor, aviation crisis consultant, about the Airbus crash yesterday. And Ken, I believe it was a United flight some years back where part of the fuselage came off, and the computers tried to do something to correct it. The pilot realized that was wrong, took over and said, had he not been able to take over, and it was a Boeing, had he not been able to take over right away, they would have crashed.
And, there are examples through, I think, through history as we look over the last 20 years. And to what you were talking about, Bill, with regards to Airbus, and to go back to Airbus for a second, there is some discussion now about the aircraft and how it's being performed, and with a nose-down attitude, where the pilots didn't command for that to happen. Mm-hmm. And it's only been in a few instances, but enough that the investigators are going to certainly be looking into that, and if it is a substantial issue that needs to be looked at throughout the fleet.
Ken Jenkins, Fox News contributor, aviation expert. In your experience, Ken, based on what they're saying about the plane descending for 8 minutes, do you think the passengers knew that whole time that they were going down?
Laura, I've thought about that since the accident, because when I heard that, it seemed like a very rapid descent to me. But in talking with the pilots and then watching the graphics on the news, it is a steep descent, but it wasn't considered a plunge. And what would have been going on in the passenger cabin, I believe, is that you'd certainly have that sense of you're descending and your ears might be popping. The only thing I'm the most concerned about at this point is as they're coming down in that descent, Laura, what are they seeing out the windows of the cabin?
Yeah, you're going down in the Alps. You're not going down in Kansas.
Exactly. It's not like you can see an airport nearby. So, there's been discussion about what the passengers were experiencing. Did they know they were about to crash? It seems like they may not have known that, but they were certainly aware of the fact that they weren't where they were supposed to be, and that it was impending. We just don't really know for sure.
But we're talking with Ken Jenkins, Fox News contributor and aviation crisis consultant. Ken, it was discussed on Sean Hannity yesterday, had Neil Bortz, who's also a pilot and former talk show host and all, said that the last 3 Airbus crashes have all occurred like almost falling out of the sky. You never hear usually of a plane once it gets to altitude. It'll crash on takeoff. It might crash on landing. It just doesn't fall out of the sky. And the last 3 Airbuses basically have. They reached a cruising altitude and then all of a sudden came down quickly.
Well, and that is certainly, you kind of scratch your head and raise an eyebrow to that and say, well, what the heck's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the last Airbus accident, which was the Air Asia accident, I believe that was in December.
Yeah.
And we certainly don't know the cause yet of that accident, but there were some conditions that make you think, okay, was weather certainly a heavy contributor to that because they were flying in thunderstorms? But in this accident, you're looking at clear skies, and all of a sudden it goes from cruise altitude to the ground, and that's certainly going to be a focus of the investigation, and it does give one pause, doesn't it?
It does. All right, Ken, we'll be back in touch. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Bill.
All right.
Good morning.
Ken Jenkins, aviation crisis consultant, Fox News contributor, 732. For those of you who are pilots, we'd like to hear from you.